Pisa Through the Eyes of a Child by Nicola Lindsay. When I was 5 years old, my mother took me to Italy. I was thrilled at the idea of leaving the familiar world of Cambridge, with its ancient colleges, crowded grey streets, and lunatic undergraduates on bicycles. All I knew was that we were leaving the damp, windy world of East Anglia and setting off for a country that was hot and sunny. I can still remember the train journey across France. It was an exciting way to travel, and the fold-down bunk beds with a dinky little ladder to reach the top bunk were much more fun than my ordinary bed back home. In one corner of the carriage was a cupboard which opened onto a sink with a carafe and glasses, soft white towels, and soap that smelled of lavender. I loved it when my mother kissed me just before she turned off the lamps as we settled down for the night. The sound of wheels, the rocking of the train, the flash of lights as we sped past stations and houses, the stops where engineers checked that all was well, and the friendly customs official who slid open the doors and asked for our passports in a language I didn't understand. All this was thrillingly novel. I also loved it when my mother produced a hamper of food and drink, bought from vendors on the platform. When she opened up the parcels, a smell of freshly baked bread and salami, strong coffee, and ripe peaches filled the carriage. Emerging from a smoke-filled tunnel into blazing Italian sunshine later that morning, I was glued to the window, exclaiming that someone had dropped lemons into the greenery, having never seen a lemon-bearing tree before. When we arrived at Pisa station, the heat, noise, and crowds made me cling to my mother's hands as she organised a porter to load our luggage onto a trolley. Emerging into the main hall, our hosts were waiting to greet us. There were a lot of hugs, cheek kissings, and smiles. We were taken to a large, sleek car. The porter stowed the luggage in the boot and was given a handful of strange-looking notes that I was told were called lira. During the drive to their house, I tried to take in the surrounding activity. As it was less than 5 years after the Second World War, there were more Vespas and Lambrettas than cars, and the air seemed full of dust. I was curious about the number of elderly women dressed in black, clutching straw shopping bags as they emerged from shops. The house where we stayed was tall and elegant, with an enormous arcaded top floor that ran the full length of the building and housed a table tennis table and a child's swing left over from when our host children were young. Papa was the head of the Banca d'Italia in Pisa. He was an important man and looked it too, bespectacled, large, and with a rounded frontage that preceded him when he entered a room, and a booming voice and an even louder laugh. Mamma was small, slim, and elegant, and a close friend and confidant of my mother. Her eldest daughter, Maria Anna, had stayed with us in Cambridge while she perfected her English, and her family were good friends of the Italian professor who had tutored my own mother. Maria Anna and her sister still lived at home, but their 2 handsome brothers had their own places nearby. They were all incredibly kind and patient with me, and were quite prepared to speak English whenever I was around. However, it was the lovely cook, Gina, who took it upon herself to teach me Italian, as she didn't possess one word of English. I was told later by my mother that my first sentence in Italian consisted of "Pui vino, per favore." I wasn't knocking back large glasses of wine, but was allowed a tiny splash in my goblet of mineral water. Language was more of a problem outside the house, as I found out when I was sent to a small day school run by sweet-faced nuns. On the first day there, I was in agony, dying to go to the loo, and the sisters, not understanding, kept giving me the cat to stroke. One of the many things I found delightful about being in Italy was that getting dressed was so much easier than back at home. No vests or jerseys or scarves and coats and woolen socks and lace-up shoes. No, it was just a thin cotton sleeveless dress, underwear and sandals. The sensuous sun on uncovered legs and the freedom of bare feet and sandals. My mother plaited my long hair and wound it up in my head so the breeze, when there was one, could cool the back of my neck. The only sour note was due to my wanting to make friends with the girl who lived in the house on the other side of the street. The building wasn't quite as tall as our house, but if I leaned out, I caught glimpses of her playing in the arcaded top floor opposite. She was dark-haired and olive-skinned. In a house totally peopled by adults, I was longing for the company of another child. So, one day, seeing her looking in my direction, I plucked up my courage and waved. No reaction. Perhaps she hadn't seen my tentatively raised hand. In my best Italian, and as loudly as I could, I shouted, "Buongiorno!" And she certainly heard that, because she looked straight at me. There was a pause, and then she slowly and deliberately stuck out her tongue, spun round, and marched out of sight. One of the few things I didn't like were the whining mosquitoes that lurked in shadowy corners of the bedroom, emerging after dusk to feast on any part of the anatomy not covered by the sheet. I remember hilarious sessions with my mother, whizzing around the room, swiping at them with the towel. They never seemed to bite the other members of the household. Maria Anna said it was because I was younger and sweeter tasting, and roared with laughter when I asked if I could eat some pickled gherkins to make my blood less appetizing. She was lovely, vivacious and warm, and I liked her a lot. Maria Anna would sometimes take me in her car to go shopping or to visit Papa in the bank. Then, with a suddenness that was shocking, that magic time, filled with sunlight, came to an abrupt end. We returned to Cambridge, to our house with the giant chestnut tree. The one thing that made this return bearable was the thought of seeing my father again. But while my mother and I had been bathing in Mediterranean light and warmth, he had chosen to walk away from us. He never came back.